All things have their seasons. There's a birth time and a death time. It's granny or grandpa for some. Others attribute it to their parents. It may be a close friend, a sibling, a sister, or someone you like. One thing is certain, regardless of who or when it occurs, everyone has felt the anguish of loss at some time in their lives. Death carries a weight that transcends all religions, civilizations, and historical periods. Despite this, it is one of the topics that people avoid the most. We discuss the origin of life a lot. To determine the baby's gender, we host parties. We celebrate its first year and all subsequent years after planning another gathering to give it away before it is even born. Even if they are really tales we have heard from others, fragments of other people's recollections that we construct as though they were our own, we nevertheless share stories about the day we were born. We celebrate life in a way that is practically ritualistic from the very beginning. Death, though, seldom is discussed. It seems as though we put off facing this fact until it becomes unavoidable and has taken away a loved one. However, things don't have to be that way. Since everyone will eventually die, why don't we discuss it? Why do we act as though the topic is less genuine when we avoid it? Maybe because confronting it directly makes us acknowledge that whatever we own will eventually be abandoned. But contemplating mortality need not be a depressing process. On the contrary, it may help us appreciate life more and recognize its significance and fragility. Death is here. The only thing we can be sure of is that we shall eventually disappear. Breathing stops, the heart stops pumping, and brain function stops. Death, according to science, is the permanent breakdown of essential processes. However, prior to that last instant, the body exhibits indications of farewell. The skin becomes chilly and grayish, resembling a winter sky. The heart fails, and blood circulation alters. This shows up on the hands, legs, and knees. Breathing becomes irregular, fluctuating between raspy noises and near stillness, as well as between slowness and acceleration. Cheney-Stokes breathing is a regular occurrence during these last minutes. After a few quick breaths, there comes a prolonged quiet that is unnerving. A fresh breath, a final breath drawn from the line separating life and death, appears just when everyone believes it is finished. However, that hiatus will soon come to an end. No more sighing will be allowed. There won't be a comeback. They claim that there is an instant of surrender for those who go. Many people describe a sense of acceptance, a soft envelopment, as though something bigger had welcomed them. Some people characterize it as a return to a state of complete contentment, akin to what a baby experiences in its mother's womb, an embrace from nature itself. There is a feeling of tranquility, fulfillment, and closure. However, what follows? Ever since we first grasped the idea of death, this question has followed us around, a question for which there might never be a conclusive solution. Individuals frequently have a gut feeling about what is about to occur. They frequently appear to be hanging on by a thread, holding out for a certain amount of time before letting go. Some people wait for the birth of a distant kid, the visit of a friend they haven't seen in a while, or the opportunity to say, "I love you," or even, "I forgive you," one last time before they may see a loved one for the last time. Others hold their breath until they feel as though they may depart, until they hear a phrase that comforts them, or until they believe their final request has been granted. It seems as though something outside of the physical body, something that goes beyond biological indicators and ties to an ultimate goal, is what keeps us alive even when death is close. Death seldom comes as a full surprise to us. We are aware of its existence somehow. Like someone who arranges everything before leaving home and never coming back, we brace ourselves for the inevitable. After saying our final goodbyes, we shut the door and discard the key. However, an interesting event occurs at the last second. Many people describe feeling confused, as though their mind is attempting to make sense of what is occurring. The passage from awareness to the unknown happens gradually. The body stops working for the world around us, but for those departing, this can be the start of a journey that we still don't fully understand. We know exactly what occurs up to this point. Every phase of the physiological process of dying and every alteration in how the body functions may be explained by science. However, after that, we venture into unknown land. Most people believe that death is the end and that there is no way back. But is it? Thousands of accounts exist of persons who were deemed clinically dead yet resurrected with fascinating tales to tell. Near-death experiences cast doubt on our understanding of what death actually entails. This is where the question comes up. Do we really comprehend death as well as we believe we do if someone may be pronounced dead and then come back to life? Did those who returned truly make it to the other side? Or were they only on the verge of disaster? There are medical records of persons who were revived and then had amazing experiences after going many minutes or even hours without vital signs. Some claim to have seen a reassuring, brilliant light. Others spoke of a tunnel, a route that took them past the realm of existence, as if they were only witnesses to their own demise. Some people also assert that they have seen themselves from outside of their bodies. However, there is an oddity that unites all of these experiences. When the heart stops and vital signs go away, what is seen are not significant life events like a wedding, graduation, or childbirth. They are not the spectacular accomplishments that suddenly pop into your head. They are recollections that came as a surprise, fragments of commonplace, everyday events that, at the time, seemed unimportant. After all, why do we notice such little things if life truly does pass before our eyes at the time of death? Why do we encounter a random childhood memory, a typical day spent in class, or the simple act of gazing at a white cat at the top of a staircase instead of the major turning points in our lives? These haphazard pictures, these seemingly forgotten moments, are what show up on the edge of life and death. A youngster in the late afternoon sun, riding a bike. Every day, a preoccupied young lady checks her emails, looking up a set of stairs and glancing at a white cat. Moments that didn't seem significant at the time, but that now appear to have a deeper significance that we may never fully comprehend. If it seems impossible to make up the story of the white cat, it actually happened. This sight was one of the pictures presented to a young guy who had a near-death experience. One interesting fact, though, was that he had no recollection of ascending the ladder. Neither the cat nor the location were familiar to him. Nevertheless, the recollection was as clear as if it had just occurred. He told his mother what he had seen after he was revived. And to his amazement, she verified that they had lived in that same building with that staircase when he was just over a year old, and that the cat had belonged to a neighbor. But how could he have seen it without conscious memory? Do we still harbor all of our memories, even the ones we believe we have forgotten? Furthermore, do they return to remind us of something we still don't grasp at the point of death? What does it say about our existence if everything we have experienced is still preserved in our thoughts, even if we are not aware of it? Furthermore, does death restore all of our former selves, every moment we overlooked, and every detail that life swept over in the midst of daily living? Then, a question that has always pervaded mankind comes up. Should we leave alone? Is there anything or someone waiting on the other side? Or is the end a lonely process and an eventual abandonment? Many near-death experiencers claim to have seen loved ones who have passed away. Some claim that they were welcomed and led to a peaceful location by a mother, grandmother, or close friend. Others assert that because it wasn't time yet, these figures kept them from going on. Is this, however, a mental construct at a period of extreme stress? The brain's last-ditch attempt to provide solace in the face of uncertainty? Or is it anything else? Something science is yet unable to explain? The fact is that these experiences appear to provide some comfort to individuals who go through them, regardless of the rationale. For those who depart, death may not be as lonely and dreaded as it is for those who remain. The crossing may ultimately be more of a reunion than an abandonment, and maybe the idea of the soul is more than a reassuring delusion if death is a reunion and something is waiting for us on the other side. Perhaps it's something genuine, something science still doesn't completely comprehend. The goal of science has always been to identify what gives us life. The brain, heart, and lungs are organs that must work in perfect harmony to sustain life. However, what defines us as us? What endows us with this awareness, this distinct identity? Is there more to us than a collection of atoms and chemical reactions? These are still open questions. However, it is difficult to dismiss the issues raised by the increasing number of near-death experience claims. How can we explain the accounts of persons who have returned to tell us what they saw, heard, and felt while being deemed clinically dead if we are only made of flesh and bones? A young college student who overdosed on sleeping medication provided one such account. His heart stopped beating as he was being transported to the hospital. For 3 minutes, he was declared deceased. However, he appeared to have lost consciousness as his body lay still on the stretcher. Everything was visible to him from above, as though he were only a spectator hovering over the action. At that moment, he became aware of something odd. His hair was painted a vivid green by one of the paramedics attempting to resuscitate him. 3 days later, when he regained consciousness, he requested this individual, and there they were, the same green-haired paramedic. The physicians claimed that because he was asleep the entire time, he could never have seen anything. How could he have seen this detail if awareness vanished with the body? One of the biggest mysteries in human history has always been death. We make an effort to comprehend it, make sense of it, and draw solace from our experiences and beliefs. But are we prepared to discuss it? Honestly, I would like to know if you think death is the end or if you think there is something more out there. Tell me what you think by leaving a comment. Please take a moment to like the video if you haven't already. It greatly aids us in providing you with more stuff like this. The situation of the young college student is not unique. Numerous anecdotes that have been recorded over the years cast doubt on our comprehension of what occurs at the time of death. A famous neurosurgeon at Harvard University named Ibn Alexander had an encounter in 2014 that fundamentally altered his perspective on death and awareness. Until he experienced anything similar, he had always thought that near-death experiences were only delusions brought on by the failing brain. Eben went into a 7-day coma after catching an uncommon case of bacterial meningitis. His brain activity was essentially non-existent at this time, and there were no indications that the neocortex, the area of the brain in charge of perception and cognition, was working. When he awoke, however, he described a deep and vivid experience. He claimed to have seen a location of unfathomable beauty and heard music that was impossible for a person to have created. He claimed to have been led by a celestial figure who followed him as he peered into an infinite vastness and to have been engulfed by an unfathomable love. The most astounding aspect is that he shouldn't have been able to have any conscious experiences during that profound slumber from a neurological standpoint. Because of the effect of his case, Eben authored a book called Proof of Heaven, a neurosurgeon's journey into the afterlife, which went on to become a global bestseller. Furthermore, it doesn't end there. American singer-songwriter Pam Reynolds experienced one of the most well-researched and recorded near-death experiences in 1991. In order to repair an aneurysm at the base of her brainstem, she needed to have highly delicate brain surgery. Her body temperature was lowered to 15 degrees C. Her heart was momentarily turned off, and all brain activity was stopped as part of a process known as induced cardiac arrest. To put it another way, her body was placed in a condition of temporary clinical death so that medical professionals could perform procedures without worrying about potentially lethal hemorrhage. After the procedure was completed and she was returned, Pam mentioned something remarkable. She claimed to have floated around the operation area, seeing the medical staff do surgery on her brain after leaving her own body. She was able to precisely describe things that she shouldn't have been able to know, such the sound of the surgical equipment, the tools being used, and the talk between the surgeon. The most amazing aspect is that his eyes were shielded and kept closed during the process, and his ears were fitted with sensors that continuously made noises to track his brain activity. To put it another way, there was no rational way that she could have known what was going on around her. The idea that awareness is restricted to the brain is called into question by cases such as Pam and Evans. They prompt us to consider if the mind and body are distinct entities. Do we possess a substance that is beyond matter? Although there are currently no conclusive answers from science, the number of stories is rising. One thing also doesn't change as we attempt to comprehend the nature of death, how we treat the deceased. Funeral customs have been an integral part of human communities for thousands of years. The manner in which ancient societies interred their dead provides us with a great deal of information. Humans were already performing elaborate funerals at least 100,000 years ago, according to the archaeological site of Kafze in Israel. Our predecessors may have believed in an afterlife since they deposited bodies in tombs with care, along with sentimental items, flowers, and paints. And over the ages, this custom persisted. Pharaohs in ancient Egypt were thought to require goods and sustenance in the afterlife. Therefore, they were interred with them. Samurai in Japan were interred with their swords, allowing them to battle on a different level of reality. Dia de los Muertos is a celebration in Mexico that honors the relationship between the living and the dead and serves as a reminder that death is a transition rather than the end. Funerals are still held today as a means of honoring the deceased. While some cultures favor cremation, others choose burial. As a way to give back to nature, the body is presented to birds in a practice known as celestial burial in Tibet. Our responses to death reveal a lot about our personalities. It displays our convictions, anxieties, and attitudes about life's limitation. According to several faiths, death marks the start of a new life, whether it be in paradise, reincarnation, or an other realm. For others, death is the last conclusion. Saying farewell is never easy for the living, regardless of one's beliefs. The dead are buried, burnt, disposed of in the ocean, or left in the mountains for nature to claim following the rituals and prayers. And the protracted grieving process starts for those who are left. The shock of loss is always more than we anticipate, even when we prepare for someone's death and know it is coming. Losing someone is not the same as the concept of losing them. Furthermore, it is impossible to foretell the suffering that will accompany it, because the cruelty of absence is what death delivers more than anything. The voice we can no longer hear, the empty place at the dinner table, the little routines that turn into memories. We logically understand that no one is immortal. Yet we continue to fool ourselves into thinking that there will always be another day, another encounter, and another opportunity to express what has been left unsaid. Until all of a sudden, there is none left. Then we come to understand death as a constant warning that all we own may go at any time. And that's precisely why grieving is so painful. Not only do we miss the departed, but seeing their departure forces us to confront our own mortality. When someone else passes away, we are reminded that it will eventually be us, and the world will continue to revolve without us, just as it always has when that day arrives. However, loss also transforms us in some way. We gradually come to accept the loss and learn to live with the memories without letting them break us. And oddly enough, this gives us strength, because we learn to cherish the time we have when we lose someone. It teaches us to notice those around us and understand that they are not here to stay. It reminds us that every interaction we have is potentially our last. Therefore, it is important to make the most of it. Our greatest teacher is death, after all. It serves as a reminder that the only things we carry with us are the impressions we make on other people, and that our memories will ultimately be shaped by the tales we told, the influence we made, and the love we shared, not by the material belongings or social standing we attained. Perhaps that is the only authentic way to achieve immortality. We might never know what occurs when we pass away, whether consciousness persists, whether there is a reunion, or whether we just vanish. We might never know. However, we can make sure that our existence makes meaning as long as we are here and have time. Therefore, if you have the opportunity to grasp someone's hand in their final moments and you are facing someone who is going to leave, do it. Discuss the wonderful aspects of life, regarding the occasions that were valuable, about those they loved and those who loved them in return. Discuss all that was experienced, even the last moments, and perhaps, just possibly, you will also find some calm in the unknown when it's your turn. The earth will continue to rotate after all. The birds will continue to sing. Time will pass, regardless of everything that has come before it. However, a part of ourselves will always be there in every memory, tale, and impression made. If this film teaches us anything, it's that life is fleeting and that each minute counts. And let's cherish the time we have and make the most of it while we're here. Please remember to like this material if it got you thinking, as it helps the channel expand and attract more viewers. Additionally, share this video with anybody you know who should watch it immediately. Additionally, you may write, "Thanks a lot," in the comments if you would like to help the channel even more. Your assistance makes a huge impact,